Hello everyone, and welcome to the 51 Fatal Business Errors Workbook presentation on 98-2 Delegation, Entrepreneurial Delegation. I am your host for this call. My name is Jim Muehlhausen. I am the author of the 51 Fatal Business Errors and also the author of the workbooks. Our goal for this call is to get you an understanding of what 92 Delegation is and how it can benefit you, your people, and your business. We'll take about 45 minutes for this presentation, including our questions. The first thing that I want to cover is I think that entrepreneurs, I was meeting with a couple business owners today, in fact, and both of these gentlemen grossly underestimated the value of the primary asset of their business. And we're talking about a small business or a medium-sized business, and I'll define that as $50 million in sales or under. The primary asset in that business is, in fact, you. And I think you're just being modest if you don't think that. If we could make you a doubly effective CEO, we would, in fact, double the value of that business, double the income of that business, and double the effectiveness in that business. Whether you like it or not, you are the most valuable asset in your business. However, by the same token, guess who is the biggest liability to your business, the biggest impediment of growth to your business, the biggest bottleneck to your business? Also, you. The fact of the matter is, whether you like it or not, the owner, the CEO of the business is the biggest asset and at the same time the biggest liability to the business. Why is that? Well, frankly, your time is the most valuable time in the business. There are certain things that only you as the owner can do. I'm sure that you could make a very long list of things that only you can do, and some of those will be what I'll call low-impact activities, and those are where the bottlenecks exist and where you're kind of languishing. And then also you have these high-impact, very impactful things that you do for your business. And if we could just find a way to increase the number of impactful things you did for your business while decreasing those low-impact activities, then we would really have something. And you could probably double your income, double the value of your business, and make your business much more enjoyable, which is exactly the point of 98-2 Delegation. And so at this point, a lot of people say, okay, well, how could I do this? My goal for you is I want to cut your low-impact activity work in half. The goal of 98-2 workbook is to take the work that you have that is lower impact than the other. And, you know, it all seems important, but some of it's more important than others. So let's take the lowest impact work. A, let's identify it, and B, let's cut it in half, and then let's take that time. Let's reinvest that time into higher impact activities. Here's the good news as the owner of your business. You get to define what those high impact activities are. Could it be more quality time with your kids? I've got a couple teenagers that spending time with is important to me. It could be better work-life balance or quality of life. It could be reinvesting it in growing the business, growing your sales, or enhancing your business models, or mentoring your key employees. Small business owners tend to not invest enough time in that we give a lot of lip service to our key employees. But when it really comes down to it, what's the most important thing you can do for your direct reports? And that's spend time with them, mentor them. If you don't do it, they won't be able to be as high value to your organization as you might like. Maybe it's forming strategic partnerships, getting your business sold, acquiring competitors. The list goes on and on of high impact things that we could do with that reinvested time. A lot of people say, well, this sounds simple. Why can't I just delegate to solve this problem? I'll gain more time by delegating. However, through observing entrepreneurs, I think the answer to that is emphatically no, depending on what your definition of delegation is. If you do view delegation as the 1921 definition of delegation, then I do not think that is the answer. And the reason that I throw 1921 out there is that the Harvard Business School was started in 1921, along with effectively the modern study of management. And with the modern study of management came tactics and techniques like delegation. And textbook MBA-style delegation may work terrific for the Fortune 1000, but it does not work in entrepreneurial organizations. It's incredibly ineffective, at least from my observation. And I think that there is a need for something new. And I will call that something new entrepreneurial delegation, a different version of delegation than textbook or MBA style delegation. And so the answer to your issues and my issues with delegation as entrepreneurs is not something that we can find in a textbook. We can't simply just say, oh yeah, I'm going to delegate this problem away. I'm sure you have had the experience that many of my clients and many clients that I've dealt with around the country have had. I try to delegate problems away. I try to delegate tasks and functions away, and it simply does not work. And the reason that it doesn't work is varied, but one of those reasons is that we're using the wrong technique to delegate. The other reason that delegation doesn't work for many of us is, in fact, us. That most entrepreneurs have traits that big business people, traditional management types in big business, don't have. We are highly impatient, for instance, and our sense of impatience is a great asset to our business in many ways. However, when it comes to delegation, it tends to cause us to move too fast, to train slowly, to be too focused on the speed of getting something done and not focused on the quality of getting something done. And so that impatience that can be a vital asset to our business becomes a liability. There's an awful lot of moving parts in a small business, and more importantly, an awful lot of moving parts that the manager of the business, the owner of the business, is forced to be responsible for, which makes entrepreneurial delegation difficult. I believe that there is a difference in the quality of the person that many small businesses are delegating to than the quality of person in a Fortune 500. That we are delegating to a person that may be lesser trained and may be of lesser skill than a Fortune 500 type, and some of that maybe we're paying less as well. But we're not delegating to the same caliber of person. Makes delegation more tricky. We tend to not have the systems. We may have cultural issues that are affecting our delegation. The point being, it's trickier for us. However, I have found entrepreneurs that are successful in entrepreneurial delegation. And the trick is this, that they do not delegate in what I'll call a 100% method. That is, they don't take the work and try to just push it onto someone else. Some people will say, oh, well, don't delegate the task, delegate the function. I agree with that. I think that that's a great process. However, if you try to delegate all of anything, whether it is a task or a function, most entrepreneurs fail. The successful entrepreneurs that I have observed do not try to push 100% of anything to their subordinates. It simply doesn't work. I'm sure you have many of your own situations and stories where you have tried to push what you thought was a simple function or task to someone else, and they failed. And the reason that they failed was a little bit of the list that I just showed you, and a lot of you try to push all 100% of that task to them. It effectively guarantees that you are not going to succeed. And that's here's a graph that shows you a little bit of what that looks like. I call this delegation frustration. That the way it starts is, let's say that Mary is my star employee. Mary has worked for me for 8 years. Mary is terrific. I think that Mary walks on water. So I have a big stack of work, and I say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I didn't think about having my superstar Mary do this work. And I slide the pile of papers over to Mary. And so what happens? Does Mary do the work as fast as I want? Does she do it as well as I want? Does she make little mistakes that frustrate me? Yes, all of these things happen, and then I get very frustrated that, gosh, if my superstar Mary can't handle this fairly simple task, or at least fairly simple to me, having done it for 10 years, task, then I can't trust her, ergo I can't trust anyone, ergo I can't delegate these important aspects of my business, and I am in fact trapped doing them myself. And we get stuck in this delegation trap, and there is a way out of it. The way out of it, and what does work, is a three-pronged attack. This three-pronged attack contains one, systemization of the tasks in the business. That what we want to do is try to make things systematic, and that will make it easier for our employees to be successful. It's a little bit like training, but we're going to change our training methodology based upon the principles of 98.2 delegation. I have another workbook called Operations Planning that talks a lot about training this, taking a training methodology and pushing it down the organization. And the third prong of this is 98.2 delegation. And this is a technique not so much that I invented, but that I observed in successful entrepreneurs. What happens is you see several dozen, 100 successful entrepreneurs that can delegate, and you see lots of entrepreneurs that cannot delegate, and you ask yourself, as an observer of entrepreneurs, why is that? Why are some successful and some not successful? And the reason is that they don't try to delegate 100% of it, all of it. The 98-2 stands for percentages. That what the successful entrepreneurs do is delegate 98% of a task and keep 2% of the task. And so in order to be a successful 98-2 delegator, what you have to do is change your way of thinking, and that you have to give up on getting rid of all of the work and instead getting rid of 98% of the work, because it just simply doesn't work otherwise. What we want to do is keep that 2%, and I call that 2% the Picasso work. And if you think about a painting that Picasso does, there's an awful lot of activity that is involved in turning that into a Picasso painting that doesn't necessarily have to be done by Picasso. There's only one thing that Picasso has to do, and that is touch the brush to the canvas. No one else can paint a Picasso painting other than Picasso. You and I can go to a craft store, buy a paint by number, do everything systematically the same as Picasso, and we all know the result. It's not going to be the same. There's just some work that no one can do for you. You are the biggest expert. Don't discount your value to the business. There are some things that you are Picasso in for your business, and it's only 2%. It's not going to kill you to do 2% of the work. And you need to touch the canvas in your business. But if we're talking about stretching the canvas across the painting surface, mixing the paint, choosing the lighting, setting it up, what are we going to paint, where are we going to paint, doing all that legwork, that doesn't have to be done by Picasso. Yes, it might be better if it were done by Picasso, but it does not have to be. The Picasso work is the work that only you can do. And so the trick to all this delegation is we figure out what that Picasso work is. We don't even try to delegate it. We give up on delegating that piece, and then we work on a process to get rid of another 98%. And what I have observed is this actually works versus delegation frustration, where I push it to other people, it doesn't work, and I become trapped in a delegation trap. Here's what we do in the 98-2 delegation process. The first thing that we do is we use the delegation grid, which you see on screen, and in the delegation grid, on the x-axis, the horizontal axis, we have how much time a task takes, from 0% of your time to approximately 50%. Then on the y-axis, the vertical axis, we have how much is that activity work. So for instance, I have a friend that owns a big courier, a couple hundred drivers, and back in the old days when he was growing, he would find himself jumping in a car and delivering stuff that was $8, $10 deliveries all the time. And it was because he was short on driving, and it happened a lot. And we would call that, in this case, blue-collar activity. He's just filling in for a driver. It's high frequency, low value. We have what's called the white-collar work. That is high frequency, high value. That tends to be management work. That tends to be sales work. If we're out there closing deals, that may be high value, but if it's high frequency, there's other people that should be doing that. What we want to move to is what we call the green-collar work. Low frequency, high value work. Maintaining our banking relationships, the true CFO work, the owner of the customer relationships, all those things that are the 2% are the green collar work. So we want to figure out what is our high impact work and what is our low impact work. We're going to do that through using a time log, which is included in the workbook, and we're going to do a plot that I'll show you in a couple slides. And we're going to figure out our high impact work versus our low impact work. Then we're going to systematize, train, do those 3 steps, and delegate to get rid of that low impact work. Then we're going to fill the time vacuum with the high impact work. So we get rid of the low impact work, and then we fill it with higher impact work. This may seem like a minor point, but it's extremely important. And what happens is entrepreneurs are drivers. They're high energy. They're high drive. And so what they always say is, no, I don't need to get rid of any work. Give me more. What I need to do is, got it. Okay, I need to do more high impact work. Let me focus more on the high impact activities. That's not going to work. That's a plan doomed for failure. You're already working very hard. You have the gas all the way down on the floor. You're not going to do more work. You have to get rid of something to take on something else. It seems like a minor point, but it's incredibly important. First we lose work, then we fill the vacuum. That's what does work. And step 4 is just rinse and repeat. We're going to just go back and we're going to do it again. I have a client that we went through this process every 6 months, and we cut his work in half every 6 months for 18 months, which means at the end of 18 months, this gentleman was doing 12.5% of the tasks and the work that he was doing before. That's a very different job. That's a very different impact on the organization when you have lost 88% of your low impact work. So here's what that plot looks like. So then we plot our tasks on this delegation graph. And so we have how much is a task worth in dollars per hour approximately. Don't get too fancy with it. Just plot your best guess and how much of it we do. We will plot the task, and then we draw a line through the tasks, half of them below the line, half of them above the line, and that is our delegation line. And the closer to vertical, 90 degrees, this line is, the better. We want to continue over time to rotate that line counterclockwise until it's almost vertical. And now what we're going to do is we're going to lose the tasks that are below the line, and we'll follow the do it, dump it, delegate it. I think in the case of the workbook, I would prefer to delegate it. There's a way to systematize and delegate this. It's covered in the workbook. But we want to dump all those tasks that are below the line through using the 98-2 delegation process. And then what we will do is continue to rotate that line, and the good news is every time we lose tasks below the line, it gives us the opportunity to take on tasks that are above the line, and effectively we're now redrawing that line, and that line will continue to rotate in a counterclockwise fashion until it reaches something that you see here, to where we have this very small sliver of work that is a line that's pointing at 85 degrees, 90 degrees straight up, and that becomes all Picasso work, meaning that the true entrepreneur, the Donald Trumps of the world, the Jack Welches of the world, engage only in Picasso work. Super high value, low frequency work that only the CEO can do. But the key to this whole process is being able to use this 98-2 delegation technique. If we try to use traditional delegation where we're trying to get rid of all of the tasks, all I've seen is abject failure. It just simply doesn't work. It's very frustrating for entrepreneurs who tend to be easily frustrated in the first place because of their high impatience level that serves them in many areas. But if you think about the successful things that you have delegated, there's always this little sliver of work, that 2% that you just simply cannot delegate. And that's where the core of 98-2 came from, is that if you just give up on trying to delegate this stuff that just isn't worth delegating, it may be impossible to delegate. Even if it isn't impossible to delegate, frankly, it isn't worth delegating. So let's just flip this over. Let's have a paradigm shift. And what we do with 98-2 delegation is we start with what is the Picasso work? What's that 2% that we can't delegate? And then how do we figure out how to get rid of the 98? I want to tell you a little bit of a story of something that we did that will show you how 98-2 delegation works. I have a client named Ann, and Ann was in the alternator rebuilding business. It's kind of a quirky business, and I apologize for the story, but it's a good one to understand. And in the alternator business, you had something like this picture where you had barrels and barrels of alternator cores that were just basically chunks of dirty metal. And through being the oldest employee at the company, Ann was the only one that could identify these things on site. So imagine having to walk down this aisle and look at all those chunks of metal and say, that's a number 1, 2, 3, that's a number 4, 5, 6, that's a number 7, 8, 9. It was a very difficult and highly skilled task. You certainly have these in your business, just like Ann did. And so Ann spent the bulk of every Friday and sometimes every Saturday sorting cores because no one else could identify them. Because the way that this process worked was you took a core, you tore it down, you cleaned it up, you rebuilt it, and that became the new product. So this was effectively the core, the raw material that they started with. No core, no part number. So this was an important task, but it was really a time suck for Ann. And so Ann did what any logical entrepreneur would do. She tried to leverage the existing strategy. So she would say, okay, someone come help me sort the cores. So she has someone playing her helper, and they walk around, and it increases the efficiency a little bit. And then it's 2 helpers, and then she does an instruction manual, and she did all the traditional things that every entrepreneur did. And frankly, as the volume grew, it still took her all day, every Friday to do this. And then we started applying some of the 98.2 stuff. And I'll spare you the details of how it worked out. And it probably was a 6-month process to get all of this done. But at the end of the process, here's what Ann's core sorting routine looked like from an all-day Friday event. It looked like this. Ann got 5 of the guys in the shop armed with paint pens. As you can see on these barrels, there's little markings, and those are done with a paint pen. That's how you mark metal. So she got 5 guys with a paint pen, and she made a manual. One of the things that she did in the 6 months was make a manual to identify the easy stuff. And the core department was under orders, do not put something in that barrel if you're not positive what it is. If in doubt, throw it in a shopping cart. And so you had these rows of shopping carts every Friday that had accumulated that effectively needed to be sorted by Ann. And they put these cores out on the floor in a certain order. So if you imagine the different angles that you could hold a penny. If you had a penny in your hand, you could lay that on the table tails up. You could lay it heads up. If you had it heads up, it could be rotated to where Abe Lincoln's head was straight up and down. It could be at a 10-degree angle, a 20-degree angle. It could be on its side. There's lots of ways to rotate a penny. What Ann said was, I want all these pennies in military order the exact same direction, which was effectively heads up, Abe Lincoln straight up and down. So they lined the floor with cores that they didn't know how to do, and Ann could identify them on site. 5 guys with paint pens followed behind her, and she pointed and said, that's a number 567. That's a number 923. That's a number 1127. And all these gentlemen did was write the part number on it that Ann had the Picasso skill, identifying cores. They identified them, and then they put them away afterwards, and it literally took her 5 minutes instead of a whole day. That she had figured out that the Picasso skill was looking at it and saying what the hard numbers to identify were. But all the other work, sorting them out all week and not finding the easy ones, laying them in a certain order, making it incredibly easy for her to do, was done by her staff. And now she went from all day to 5 minutes. Every business has the opportunity to do something like that. What the benefits of 98.2 delegation are to you and to your business, first and foremost, it actually works. That once you learn the technique of 98.2 delegation, you will find a process that actually will work versus a process that tends to frustrate entrepreneurs. And that's because they're using this 90-year-old textbook delegation instead of a delegation process that works for entrepreneurs. I think you'll find that your staff is highly empowered, because now what happens is you have more meaningful work for your staff to do instead of the low-level stuff that you're giving them now. In an economy like this where times are tough, I think that the productivity gains that can be gained from this delegation technique cannot be ignored. There is some significant, think about Ann's productivity as a CEO that I just described. All of that productivity was free. That cost nothing. She got back an entire day of CEO time at CEO rates for $0.00. And this is a skill that can be taught to your staff and learned by your staff. Every activity from how to make coffee to how to sell a key account can be applied to 98.2 technique. That there's 98.2 in every single thing that we do. And it starts with you, and it's most important for you, but it certainly can be taught to your staff as well. And I think that once you get the gist of it and once you get the hang of 98.2, it will become habit. I've seen it with clients. I've been teaching this technique for 10 years, and once you learn how to 98.2, you'll never go back. It's a secret, effectively, that successful entrepreneurial delegators have learned. The way that we teach 98.2 delegation is through the workbook series. And what is included in the 51 Errors workbook, just a couple of exercises that are in here. I have an exercise that we call the copper miner exercise, and there are some secrets of how to mine copper that are perfectly analogous. They will make a whole bunch of sense to you, that once you learn the secrets of a copper miner, you will know exactly how to identify your Picasso work and how to work those secrets just like a copper miner does. One of the exercises that we have in the workbook is how to screw in a light bulb. Seems incredibly easy, but I promise if you can teach someone on your staff to screw in a light bulb the right way, you can delegate a lot more than you can today. And here's the point. It's much more complicated to show someone how to screw in a light bulb than you think it is. It's dozens of steps and a complex process, and the way that we tend to delegate is, hey, Bob, go screw in the light bulb. Then Bob messes up screwing in the light bulb, and then I go, gosh, I don't understand why Bob couldn't do this successfully. I thought Bob was pretty good, and the knucklehead can't even screw in a light bulb. The problem isn't Bob. The problem is you, and the problem is that you're not telling him correctly how to screw in the light bulb using the techniques of 98.2 and, frankly, just some good training techniques. The other thing is there actually are 5 phases of delegation. It's not just Bob screw in the light bulb. There are 5 phases of delegation. We'll walk you through all 5, and from what I've seen, dozens, perhaps hundreds of entrepreneurs, almost all of them get stuck at phase 2. That they can master phase 1, which is along the lines of, hey, go make the coffee for the office. That's pretty easy to master. That's easy stuff. And they get stuck at phase 2 delegation and execute that reasonably well, but they can never get past that. Until you can master all 5 phases of delegation, you're not going to master any delegation, including 98.2 delegation. Key premise of the workbooks that we've got are no do-it-yourself. I believe that CEOs are far too busy. Many of them don't even have time to read good business books simply because they're so busy running their business, and it stinks to do things yourself. So the entire premise of the workbook is do it with. We want you working with someone that is that has been certified by me and knows exactly how to accomplish the main objectives of this workbook. For instance, in this workbook, there's 14 exercises. All of my certified coaches know exactly how to make the workbooks, and they will sit with you. We've got people in about 35 markets in the U.S. They're all major metros. And if you're in one of those markets, one of those coaches will sit across the desk from you and work with you for 90 minutes on this workbook. You don't have to do it alone. I have been a business owner my whole life, and I'm guessing you feel the same way. I hope so. It stinks to do stuff by yourself. There's way too much that we do by ourselves as business owners, and I wanted to write something that you did with someone. The other thing is I didn't want it to be an ebook. I think some digital download just isn't as good as something that is a physical workbook. So they come in a 3-ring binder, and this is a physical product that you can write on, that you can doodle on, that the certified coach can work with you on, and there's no need to go look at a computer screen or do it online. I have a couple of cool assessments that come with this. One is for you. You can go to the University of CEO page, the link is in the workbook, and you can rate your own delegation. Even more interestingly, we'll have your staff rate how they think you delegate, that there's an opportunity for them to anonymously rate your delegation. They're 2 different tests. The coach will gather those assessments, take the names off of them, no getting anybody in trouble here, and bring those back to you, and we can see how you think you delegate and where you delegate well matches with what your staff thinks. What we've got here, what you're seeing here, is the actual pages of the 98.2 delegation workbook. So as you can see them flipping by, these are the actual internal contents of the 98.2 delegation workbook, and this is what your coach will be working with you on. Primarily, it's explanations and exercises. You have all the answers in you. This is the good thing. What we want to do is take all of the great knowledge you have and apply them to the 98.2 delegation technique through the exercises that we've got, and then help craft a program that will help you work the 98.2 program in your business. This is the coaching certificate that comes with each of the workbooks. Each of the workbooks comes with 90 minutes of coaching. If you happen to be somewhere that is more of a rural area or a market that we don't have a certified coach, what you can do is contact the office, and we will have someone who is a certified coach work with you via the telephone to get your 90 minutes of coaching, and you too can get the benefits of that coaching. Again, no need to do it yourself. We want you to work with someone that can help you be more effective in using the product. Each of the workbooks is $199, your cost. That's it. That includes the shipping and handling as well as the workbook and the coaching. So the 90 minutes of coaching, the physical workbook, $199. You can order those online at universityofceo.com/workbooks. Drop us an email. We will send an email to the attendees of the workshop. If you'd like a quick link for those, no need to write it down. But they're easy to order online, or if you work with someone that already is a 51-hour certified coach, they will have a copy of those workbooks already, and they could certainly have those for your delivery. I'll go ahead and open up the lines. I see I got a couple of questions. Let me unmute the lines here. Apologize if we got any background noise, and I will take questions. That's the presentation that we have so far, but if you have a question, go ahead and jump in. Any questions, folks?
I have a question.
Absolutely. Who am I talking to?
Talking with Gray in Houston.
Hey, Gray, how are you? This is Jim.
Fine.
What can I do for you?
Hi, Jim. How are you doing? I joined about 4 minutes late, so I hope I didn't miss the best 4 minutes at the beginning or something. But so basically, to improve my delegation skills, or hope to improve them, something doesn't sound right here. It's $199?
That is correct. I can raise the price for you if you'd like. Special price for you, Gray. They're $599.
Sounds like it's too low. Okay, and you all will be sending how to order the book and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. You can just purchase them online. It's real easy, but I'll just send you a link. No need to write it down. Okay. It is the link that if you're looking at a screen, you can see it. If not, don't worry about it. We'll send you a link.
And if I want, so basically, if I have some other executives in my company that I want to do this same thing, then I get a workbook for each one of them, and they would each have 90 minutes with the coach also?
That is correct. You could do it that way. Theoretically, you can all do it at once, but I think realistically for the price, I think that they would benefit. I think that you'll find that once you learn the technique, it's awfully effective for anyone that's executive level.
Okay. And also, is there some place where I can, since I joined late and everything, where I can get a printout of the slides of this presentation?
I have a policy. I don't give the printout of the slides, but if you go, I will send a link where I have 4 PowerPoints, including one that's about half of this, where you actually can view a video.
Okay, I think I saw some of that already on your website, maybe.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have an awful lot of consultants that come on my calls, and all of them always ask for all the slides, and it's kind of like, do your own PowerPoints, please.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you for the information. It was very, very interesting.
All right, well, thank you, Greg. Great questions. Any other questions? All right, everybody's so quiet on these things. All right, well, I will go ahead and wrap up. Certainly, you can see the emails on the bottom. If you do have any questions that you would like to ask, feel free to do those. Workbooks at universityofceo.com is where you can ask those questions. Thank you for your time and your participation. You will get an email with the links to make it easy. No need to jot them down, and please don't jot them down if you're driving in the CYA mode. Hopefully, it's been worth your time and attention, and we'll look forward to working together in the future.